The Southwestern Vermont Chamber of Commerce and partnering organizations were awarded 5 different COVID relief marketing grants by the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, or ACCD, recently. The Restart Vermont Regional Marketing and Stimulus Grant Program, through the ACCD, provided grants to organizations for efforts and activities related to economic recovery, consumer stimulus, marketing, or tourism-related projects to support businesses that have suffered economic harm due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. The grants are intended to enable local, regional, or statewide organizations to implement campaigns and initiatives that will increase consumer spending, support local businesses, and advance community recovery efforts. We had a chance to talk with Matt Harrington, the Executive Director of the Southwestern Vermont Chamber of Commerce, about the grants and other issues facing the business community as the COVID-19 pandemic rumbles on, although with a hoped-for end starting to come into view as vaccines are distributed and the virus brought under some kind of control.
So walk us through these 5 grants, Matt. What do each of them do, and how will that money be spent or invested?
Great, and thanks, Andrew and GNAT, for having me on today. The grants that you're talking about are Restart Marketing grants. They're part of the COVID Relief Fund that came through last year, or this year rather, and you know, a lot of that money got sent in different ways all around the state of Vermont, as well as every other state. And a portion of that big $1 billion check that came to Vermont, a little bit of it got put into regional marketing efforts. And you know, I think there was something like $500,000 that people could apply for. We did as the Chamber of Commerce, and we did kind of innovatively and creatively, you know, as one organization, we could only apply for 1 grant. Although we had some ideas, we talked with some of our partners around the region, and so we actually applied for 5 grants through our partners, and those partners include the town of Bennington, Merck Forest, the regional marketing organization, the Shires of Vermont, and the Bennington Banner and Manchester Journal. So collectively, we applied for 5 of those and won and received 5 grants to the tune of about $50,000. And those, each one of those was $10,000 that got put into various buckets of efforts that we've been working on. And I'll just go quickly kind of through those, and we can talk a little bit more about each one. But just recently, just yesterday, the Bennington Banner and New England newspaper, their parent company, worked with us to launch the digital holiday marketplace. That's going to be pretty much a big platform that sits on top of the Bennington Banner and uses their kind of SEO and their Google capability to broadcast out to the world. And so we've had 75 plus businesses hop on that platform. It kind of looks like a storefront. And if you were to go there and you wanted to go shopping at H.N. Williams, or you wanted to go shopping at the chocolate shop down in Bennington, you could kind of find those people. You could click on them, and you would be brought to their website, where either you could order online or call them. And part of that is just, you know, recognizing that we have to be safe still here in Vermont. We're a little nervous during December as COVID cases ramp up, and so we're happy to provide this as an opportunity to spread kind of the Vermont craft out into the world. And if people in New York or people in California want to come and find great local Shire shops, they can hop onto that marketplace. So we're excited about that. The other one, we partnered with Mondo Media Works through the Chamber. And we're producing 5 digital videos that highlight various sectors of the Shires of Vermont. Many people have probably already seen one of them. That's the recreation video, which is a nice, tight, 60-second thing that just highlights some great recreational assets in the Shires. And we're going to produce 4 more in the next couple weeks, and people can go to exploretheshires.com and see all of them as they kind of roll out. Many people remember Garlic Town. Traditionally, we have Garlic Fest, which brings about 16,000 people here to Bennington, Vermont. And, because of COVID, we couldn't do that this year. So we pivoted quickly, designed a mile-wide farmers market in the pockets, safe pockets for people to stop in at their leisure in September. And so that was fun, halfly funded by the regional marketing grants. And the feedback from it was, because we put it right in downtown Bennington, many of the shops who actually did sidewalk sales that day had a really good boost. And that's what we're working for with these grants. Either marketing, we want to market the area and get Bennington and Manchester and the Shires of Vermont on the map, and/or we want to make sure we're putting cash into our businesses' pockets. So one of the other grants, we partnered with Merck Forest and the Shires Adventure Outdoor Recreation Group through the Chamber on a regional recreational assets. And so we're building those out. The video was one of them. We're going to have a couple other elements, advertising and a social media campaign to, again, encourage people when they can come back to Vermont to take advantage of Southwestern Vermont recreational opportunities. And then the final one was through the Shires of Vermont Regional Marketing Organization, or now they're known as the DMO. And that was the Shires Shopper. We just wrapped that up over the weekend, but that was a 2-week sprint, 2-week blitz to try and get people into stores sooner than the holiday season, just in case Vermont shut down more and more. And as we were kind of creeping towards more of that shutdown, we wanted to make sure people got out, shopped safely, shopped early, and we had about 50 businesses participate. The carrot on top of that grant, and what we used that grant for, was for anybody that spent over $100 in any one of those stores, we would give them back $10. And so we're in the process of redeeming those and getting that underway. But yeah, just kind of a flurry of marketing efforts in the last couple months of the year.
So as you look ahead to the next couple of months, through winter season, ski season, what are some of the concerns that you're hearing from members, or you're thinking about before we get to that point where the vaccine will be widely distributed and we put the pandemic hopefully to the history books?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, and everybody probably feels this, but now, layer on the fact that you have a small business and you have product, or you have stock, or you have people that you have to, pay for. It's just the idea of another round. I think many of our small businesses feel like they're in a 15-round fight, and it's going into overtime. So I think they kind of white knuckled it through the first, kind of March through June. We had a little surge in August, and the resilience tank is running low, I think, on a lot of our small businesses, and my heart goes out to them. It's why we work so hard for those grants. I don't think any other area in Vermont received 5 immediate grants to help the bottom line. And so that was part of our effort, was just understanding that our businesses were getting nervous. And so, I think, one, holding on. That's going to be the hardest thing for them. And kind of, we all need to pull together, continue to support small business, whatever that looks like. Continue your gym membership, even though you can't go to the gym if you don't go to the gym. Continue getting haircuts, or save up your money to get a good haircut after the winter. Who knows what the winter is going to bring in, and yet we still have to be able to support our small businesses. The other concern, and it's kind of interesting, just again, if we were to look back, in a year, one of the things that's interesting is that many of our small businesses, especially the front line or the forefront businesses, the retailers and lodging properties and restaurants, they feel like they're having to police a lot of the people. So if we do have people coming up from New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, it's not sure the state is telling them, hey, here are the guidelines. But I think many of our small business owners are being the ones to tell them, you can't eat here, you can't sleep here, you can't shop here, you need to put a mask on, where are you from? So that's something small businesses never signed up for. And so, we've been on a couple calls with our senators and some of our representatives, working with some of our small businesses, just sharing that feedback. I'm not sure there's a direct solution, but the added stress of policing. And then, it goes back to Vermont charm. The hardest thing for many of our lodging and retailers and restaurants, wearing a mask, kind of having the police, people come to Vermont for that Vermont charm. And the inability to even show a smile through a mask, or to, not tell people you can't eat here, it just really takes away from, I think, some of the magic of Vermont, and a lot of the reasons why these small businesses opened up in Vermont and serve the people of Vermont and outside. So I think that's just hard, and that's demoralizing. So again, we're asking for more resilience. We're asking for people to weather the storm through the winter. Oh, and by the way, police, wear a mask, have less business, and not be able to show that Vermont smile. So that's tough on many of our small businesses.
Are there some in particular, you mentioned a couple of sectors there, like lodging and restaurants and retail, that seem to have been, as you say, on the front lines here, or most impacted? Do you think the state was going to be able to kind of provide more assistance, sort of like what we saw back last spring, to kind of just help them get through the winter months, if they're not like in a ski town where typically that would be a busy time of year, and it's just kind of a case of, like, as you say, trying to get through and wait until the summer when folks are starting to travel here again. Is there any sense that there may be some additional funding coming through to help that out?
Yeah, well, first, I think every small business needs to write Senator Dick Sears a thank you letter in Southwestern Vermont. Senator Sears really went to bat for a lot of small businesses. He's been doing it ever since the beginning of this. But if we remember that there was that second round of funding that was going to be available for many businesses, I think something like there was $75 million dollars available, and the need was $750 million. So once the state kind of received all the applications, they realized that the $75 million would be eclipsed by the need. And so what they've decided to do is really support those businesses most impacted. And I don't think anybody argues lodging has been the one that's been most impacted. At least restaurants can do takeout, retail can do online. The lodging property just sits empty. There's not a whole lot you can do with it. And so Senator Sears and his partners in the legislature allocated more funds to the lodging properties, and then kind of whatever left over after that will be spread out to first come, first serve on that $75 million grant. So that'll kind of get us at least through the first stimulus bill that came to Vermont. I think many of us know that there's another one sitting in Congress. We're going to have to get into the session in 2021 to really understand and see where that's going to happen. Again, we have three really great representatives in the national delegation, and that being Congressman Peter Welch, Leahy, and the other guy, Bernie, of course, Bernie. So, we've got a terrific group in the national delegation, and the more that team can work together to provide more to smaller states like Vermont, that's where we'll know. I think everybody's working. I think that if there's anything to rest assured in, I'm not sure, I can't promise that there will be money. I'm assuming that Stimulus Bill 4 will be passed at some point with some compromise between the Democrats and Republicans. But we know that our national, our state, and even our local people are working hard to find monies. And that can be everything from the Department of Labor to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development to your local Chamber of Commerce.
So coming out of this whole experience, the pandemic, what do you see as the big lessons learned that we've taken or will be taking away from this? Is it are you as you look out and you see like things like remote working becoming way more prevalent than they were? It seems like there's a lot of things that have accelerated that were kind of in the pipeline. uh, that may have come out in 5 or 10 years from now, but the pandemic forced that much more rapidly. Uh, are you? Are there some thoughts you're taking out of this whole experience where you think, okay, when we've got through the vaccine period and things are sort of settling down back to normal, we will be doing things differently here and there? Or is it just going to be a case of, hey, we just want to get back to the way things were in December of 2019?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we get back to the way we were really ever again. Just kind of the cataclysmic nature of just stopping everything. And we've experienced that once in March and April. Who knows what the winter will bring, but, I don't think you kind of do that and ever walk back. It kind of reminds me of World War II, kind of the post-World War II and pre-World War II, and the two shall never be the same. One thing, and I'll admit, one of the things that I just, I kick myself, and a lesson learned personally for me, and myself in the role at the chamber is, we should have come together sooner as a leadership group for the region. And that could have included town managers, clerks, legislature, chambers, economic development partners, DMOs. We should have, I think everybody worked hard. I remember those early months, everybody was just working really hard to figure out what to do and how to mobilize and things. But I think about, we never all got around a digital table and said, okay, for Southwestern Vermont, or hey, for Bennington or Manchester, whatever, what is our game plan and how do we deal with crisis? I don't think I don't think this is going to be the last pandemic. I don't think it's going to be the last crisis. We experienced that with Irene. Again, here we are with COVID. Who knows what the next 10 years are going to bring? And so, if there's one thing that I'm more committed to, and I would employ my partners across the leadership spectrum of the region, is let's get together and yeah, like you said, Andrew, post-mortem. What could we learn from this? Well, we all have to, immediately when we start to see clouds on the horizon, we all have to hop on a call, and we're committed to that. We're committed to every Friday getting together at 10 a.m. and thinking about what the governor's saying. How does Southwestern Vermont react to that? What are the things we need to do? And again, I wear that fault and blame as more than anybody else. But I would encourage my partners to, let's when this kind of wraps up, let's have a lessons learned meeting, and can we commit more to being more communicative, more organized, and more strategic? So that, I think holistically, that's something I'd like to see happen. I think we need to really think, and I brought this up last night on a call with Congressman Welch, and I've said it before, really around resiliency funding. I think when, again, I think of it in buckets of a timeline as we kind of move through the year, and March through June was triage. It was just, how does everybody kind of tie off the wound, and maybe there was some funding, maybe there wasn't, let's pull it together. The summer, things opened up again, more recovery. How do we pay back our businesses and our nonprofits for money they lost? But is anybody talking about the next 10 years of Vermont? We are really at an apex. We're at a moment here where we can pause because we're not traveling as much, and we can look at Vermont and say, do we need to build a better infrastructure? And that's not just environmental or roads. That's everything from broadband and being able to support that remote worker moving here. That's everything to, I've joked before, just to kind of share my thought, but an e-commerce store for Vermont. Could we create an e-commerce store that rivals Amazon? So if you want Vermont brand and you want craftsmanship, is there kind of an e-commerce store? We put a lot of money into it. It's run by a state agency, and it sits there. And when another pandemic comes, and when your business has to close again, not that it solves everything, but we have a way to say, hey, don't worry, Andrew. Christmas Days is also on the platform, and people are still shopping, and we can figure out production, and mailing things out and ordering online and that sort of thing. So that's, I would like to see a little bit more resiliency funding. And how do we invest in that? And so, I think I always go back to peaks and valleys. When you're in the valley, it's important to start to do things that then determine the height of the peak. And for people and and then if we don't do the work in the valley, even today, then our peak will be lower. If we say, hey, let's just get back to where we were, which I think is what you were alluding to. No. Somebody needs to say, hey, let's get back. Let's go forward to where we need to be, just to be competitive, and I'll wrap up this question with, I think Vermont is in this great 24-month time window, if not less, of opportunity. And to your point, it is one of the safest states in the nation and has been collectively for the year. That's earned media that you could never pay for. We know there is a huge growth in migration, and that's with restrictions on. So imagine now we have a vaccine, people are starting to travel, and people go, wait a minute, I don't want to live in the inner city anymore when the next pandemic comes, and I don't want to live here, I want to go to Vermont. And so how are we prepared to handle that in migration? And so those are the things we need to really be preparing for today.
Are you getting the sense that this in-migration is going to be a long-term permanent thing? I've thought back a lot to like 9/11 when there was a similar kind of influx of people moving here, but it seemed like then a lot of them left after 2 or 3 years, went back to the cities or the offices where they had been working. And this one feels like it could be different, though, because we do have better broadband. It could be definitely improved. It needs to be improved, but the whole remote working thing seems to be much more advanced than it was 20 or so years ago. Do you think we're going to see these folks who are moving here, who've moved here this past year, staying and contributing to the state's economy going forward?
Yeah, and I think maybe it's a two-pronged answer, two-pronged kind of thing we have to work on. One of that is the infrastructure technology. I mean, yes, we've moved forward on broadband, but we are still far behind, especially if somebody's trying to do work to New York City and wanting to work in Vermont. I know just in our household, 2 professionals, 1 an architect, we don't have enough internet speed, and we've paid for the best, and we still have to kind of hook in. So, when 2 professionals are working at home, which is kind of what we're selling here, we need a lot more technology and infrastructure of and amenities, right? So they're coming from New York City, where you can go anywhere and get anything, and Vermont's not that way. And so I think we're going to have to grapple with, what are the amenities that a young family moving up here has to have. And I think there was always an argument, keep Vermont, keep cell services out, keep internet out. And yet, if you look at some of these younger generations of family, I heard somebody equate it to oxygen. As much as you want oxygen or need oxygen and water, really, if you think about education, work, social life, none of that happens without the internet anymore. And so we have to start to think of the internet as electricity or oxygen or water. And I think that's kind of one infrastructure technology bubble. I think the other thing that we really the human part of it is we are either a very welcoming state, or we are very welcoming individuals, or there are parts of our community that are very welcoming, and then there are parts of that community or state that are not very welcoming. And we have seen that. We have seen that within migration. I've seen it personally through the state-to-state program, way before COVID, and that when we were bringing people in of different race and color and ethnicity and background, they did not always get the most warm welcome from Vermont. And so that's change, and that is something we have to kind of grapple with and deal with. I've been on many calls about this over the last year as we do see the in-migration. I think it's always interesting to provide people a glimpse into the way that Vermont currently structured is we don't have enough taxpayers to pay the taxes that make us all live comfortably. And so when people say, well, we don't want any new people moving to Vermont, well, that's all well and good as long as you're willing, to pay the piper for that. When we don't have that many people in here, we all have to pay a little bit more. If we have some more people in here, we all can pay a little bit less and have some more amenities. And I think that is the heart of it. And that's the goal that we're going towards. And I also say, we don't need 1 million more people. We don't need 10 more million people. We're about 625,000 people. It'd be probably nice to get up to 800,000. That might just take the pressure off of a lot of our families for paying more than maybe we need to. So, I hope people watching this, understand that absolutely we're the Chamber of Commerce. We think Vermont's terrific and we want to welcome everybody to Vermont. But we also have to deal with the brutal facts and the reality of our situation, which is many people moving up here from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut are not always getting the warmest welcome. And that's a conversation Vermont has to have with itself.
And just to kind of wrap things up, and you addressed this point a little bit earlier, I think Vermont seems to be coming away from this whole experience with a fairly good, I'm not sure if aura is the right word or not, but a sense that we did tackle the pandemic seriously and took some hard measures early and, kind of followed the science and all of that, as opposed to just sort of having this sort of willy-nilly kind of approach to everything. Do you think we'll be able to leverage that reputation, for lack of a better term, going forward as a way to kind of build population and attract more folks, particularly younger folks, here to the state?
Well, Andrew, first, I always go back to that President Coolidge quote, right? If the storefront of democracy and liberty and the kind of ideals of America are ever waning or ever lost, they can always be replenished by the generous storefront of the people of Vermont. And I always go back to that because that is our DNA and that is who we are as a people. And Vermont has gone through many iterations, including a back to land movement in the 60s, the hippie movement. We have seen many faces of Vermont. There's no reason Vermont can't change again and yet still hold on to its ideals and core. And so, I want to encourage, anybody out there, Vermont has always been about unity and freedom. And that's exactly what we're offering many people. And I think we, again, have this opportunity. It is a fleeting opportunity. Opportunities like, driving by in a car and you see something, and when you only have a minute to see it, that's where we're at right now. And so we have to mobilize quickly. And that's why I talk about resiliency funding. Sure, absolutely, recovery funding. We have to save our small businesses and save our schools and save, our communities. We need to work on that. But also we need to be positioning Vermont for the future. And so what does that look like? And oh my gosh, I think, Andrew, 2 years ago, the effort that we were putting into stay-to-stay program, right? It wasn't a whole lot of money, but, I know many of us around the state were holding welcome parties and trying to get people to come to Vermont. In parallel with that program was the $10,000 relocation grant. Now we have the other problem. We have a bottleneck. We're trying to say, oh, wait a minute, let us get our things right and in order. And unfortunately, opportunity doesn't work that way. And so we have to work kind of in parallel and tandem with that in migration. And again, will they stay here is a question. We can cross that bridge when we get here. But I think part of that's going to start beyond infrastructure, beyond who's the governor or how we handle the pandemic. It's going to be handled by a welcoming community. And again, I think the core DNA of Vermont is we are welcoming. We have a welcoming community. People come up to Vermont. We are very good with tourists when they do travel here. Our brand is welcoming. And so we need to remember that and double down on that virtue.
All right. Matt Harrington, Executive Director of the Southwestern Vermont Chamber. Thank you for being with us today and sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate your time. And it'll be certainly very interesting to see where this all lands in the long run.
Thank you, Andrew, and have a happy holiday.
You too. All right. Thanks again.